Hey everybody, welcome back to some more live coding. Today we're going to be talking about React. React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. It's written by Facebook. They created it. I guess it's all open source, and the big benefit of it is that it allows you to create components that you can reuse. And that's the big feature, is components. So we're going to look at how it works, get familiar with it, starting from the very beginning, and have a little app hopefully at the end that we can use as reference for future. So I've already pulled up the React website, and I guess I'll go over the outline here. So the plan for tonight, the agenda is to cover installing it, doing a hello world, and then looking at how you would deploy it to production. And then we'll quickly go through their Tic-Tac-Toe tutorial that they have to learn how it works and learn all the components. And then we'll look around. I believe there's a lot of third-party components that you can download and install and use, so we're going to explore what is available there, and then we'll look at making some custom components with maybe some CSS animations and things. So let's get started. I'm on the React page right now. It's reactjs.org. And let's see, declarative, component-based, and learn once, write anywhere. Yeah, so one thing that's really cool about React is it's just a JavaScript framework for writing user interfaces, and you can use it on web apps, server-hosted web apps, local web apps, desktop applications with Electron. You can also use React Native to make React apps on mobile applications. That's Android and iOS. So React is actually pretty useful. You can use it across all platforms, web, desktop, and mobile if you want to. So it's got a lot of potential for what you can do with it once you learn how to use it. So let's just finish going through their homepage before we go on to their tutorial. And so they give us a simple component. React components implement a render method that takes input data and returns what to display. Okay, that makes sense. Just renders a template, essentially. This example uses an XML-like syntax called JSX. Input data that is passed into components can be accessed by render via the props. I guess it stands for properties. So it just stores all the properties on the object. Okay, that makes sense. JSX is optional and not required to use React. Try the Babel REPL to see the raw JavaScript code produced by the JSX compilation. Okay, so if we uncheck JSX here, it shows us what it does. It goes back and forth. So one allows us to use JavaScript, or just kind of plain HTML notation. Okay. A stateful component. In addition to taking input data via this props, a component can maintain internal state via this.state. Okay, so it stores its properties in its state, just like a normal object. When a component's state data changes, the rendered markup will be updated by re-invoking render. Okay, that's a pretty cool feature. So you update the data and it knows, oh, I need to update my view. So that can make things really easy. Here's the whole application. Okay. Use props and state. We can put together a small to-do application. This example uses state to track the current list of items as well as the text that the user has entered. Okay. So I guess there's no persistence on this other than in your memory for the session. Although event handlers appear to be rendered inline, they will be collected and implemented using delegation. Okay, so here it is on the right. So let's try task 1, add, task 2, add. Okay. Now what does the code look like on the left? It's not too long. Class to do app extends react.component. It's got a constructor. Okay, and you set the default state in the constructor. Okay. Then they implement the render, where they basically return the HTML with a couple variables interspersed. And then there's handle change, handle submit. Oh, okay, that's when the buttons are clicked. And so it just stores, it just updates the state to add new items in a list. Okay. So what is this? There's a to-do list that extends React component. What was the one above called? To-do app extends React component. This one is called to-do list. Okay, so there's an app, and then there's the list. And I guess the app implements a list. Yeah, here it is. So the app implements the list. So there's two main components. And then you just call React DOM.render. You give it the top level component and where you want it to go. What div you want to put it in. Okay. I can dig this so far. This is pretty straightforward. A component using external plugins. React allows you to interface with other libraries and frameworks. Yeah, that's what I was talking about before. This example uses Remarkable. Hey Mythic. Mythic says hello. Welcome. Welcome to another episode. This example uses Remarkable, an external markdown library, to convert the text area's value in real time. Whoops. Oh, that's the very end of the page. Okay. Yeah, so this, to convert text area's value in real time. Okay, so we change it. As soon as we change it, it's updating the value below. Okay. Now how does it do this? Handle change. So this handle change equals this handle change bind to this. That's slightly confusing. I'll have to understand what that does in a minute. Handle change, okay. Get raw markup. Okay. So it's just calling return. Returns the markdown editor. And there's just a function to update the text. Okay. Well, that's enough for the homepage. They were just showing us kind of a quick taste. So they give us the tutorial, Intro to React. This tutorial doesn't assume any existing React knowledge. We'll build a small game during this tutorial. You might be tempted to skip it because you're not building games, but give it a chance. Okay, we'll give it a chance. Let's see. The tutorial is divided into several sections: setup, overview, completing, and adding time travel. Okay, what are we building? In this tutorial we'll build interactive Tic-Tac-Toe. Okay, I know what Tic-Tac-Toe is. I know this. Prerequisites. We'll assume you have some familiarity with HTML and JavaScript, but you should be able to follow along even if you're coming from a different programming language. Okay. That should be alright. There are two ways to complete this tutorial: either write the code in the browser, or set up on a local machine. Okay, so they've got, it looks like, yeah, they're using codepen.io, and it looks like you can do all the coding in there, but I'm going to try and do it locally. I'd rather do it on my computer. So, setup option 2, local development, completely optional, not required. That's okay, I'd rather do it this way. This setup requires more work, but allows you to complete the tutorial using an editor of your choice. Here are the following steps. Make sure you have Node.js installed. I do, and I will verify. I'll go do node version 11.11.0. Yep, and npm, same thing. npm 670. I'm guessing that's the one. That's the one that came with 11. And follow the instructions for create React app to make a new project. npx create React app my app. Okay. That's all they say to do here. Now, I did learn earlier that when you run npx, even if you don't have the package installed for it, it'll actually download and figure out what package you need to install. So watch, let's make a directory. We'll just call it temp for now. And you can see there's nothing in there. Okay, so we'll do npx just confirm it works, or we have it installed. So create React app, and we'll call it Tic-Tac-Toe. Tic-Tac-Toe React. So it's going to go ahead and download everything it needs. It's going to download React, React DOM, React scripts. It's going to generate a project. And yeah, so if we do ls, we'll see we've got our whole project. We've got the source and all that in there. And it gives us some tips here. Success created Tic-Tac-Toe React. Inside that directory, you can run several commands. Yarn start starts the development server. Yarn bundle bundles the app into static files for production. Okay, that's going to be really important. And I'm actually going to copy this and toss this into a little notes file for now, just in case I forget those commands, so I permit them to memory. Maybe we'll put them in a readme, but for right now, that's fine. So let's go into our project and let's try this. Yarn start. Okay, it started up and it even opened the browser. Now, okay, there it is. So it loaded localhost 3000. Now it says edit source/app.js and save to reload. And then there's a link to react.js, reactjs.org. Edit source.app and save to reload. Does that mean it's automatically going to auto reload? Okay. So let's try it out real quick. What if we open a new one? Actually, let's try this. I'd rather tmux it. Okay, so what I want to do here is edit sort. Well, I want to run it first, so yarn start, and then create a new one, and I want to edit source/app.js. Okay. So let's edit something. Hello. Okay, so now it says hello. Well, I need to hit save, but I'm curious if it will reload. It does. So when you do yarn start, it's actually watching the file system. It'll automatically reload every time you save. So that's very cool. Okay. Learn React. Okay, so we were already there. And we've got a template app. So what I'm going to do now is get out of the terminal and I'm going to bookmark this one just to make it easy in case we need to get to it again. And okay, so yeah, well, hold on a second. This was the page where it says create a new React app, and this is the one they told us to look at if we're setting up our own local environment. So yeah, maybe we should just go through it real quick and make sure we're not missing any important environment setup steps. This page describes a few popular React toolchains which help with tasks like scaling to many files and components, using third-party libraries from NPM, detecting common mistakes early, probably a linter, live editing, CSS and JS, optimizing output for production. The toolchains recommended on this page don't require configuration to get started. Well, that's nice, because I don't want to spend a bunch of time configuring them. You might not need a toolchain. If you don't experience the problems described above or don't feel comfortable using JavaScript tools yet, consider adding React as a plain script tag on an HTML page, optionally with JSX. This is always the easiest way to integrate React into an existing website. Okay, recommended toolchain. Let's see what they recommend. They primarily recommend these solutions. If you're learning React or creating a new single-page app, use Create React App. Okay, and that's what we did. We just used Create React App. We did npx Create React App. If you're building a server-rendered website with Node.js, try Next.js. If you're building a static, content-oriented website, try Gatsby. If you're building a component library or integrating, try more flexible toolchains. Okay, yeah, so we just want the first one, create React app, and that's all good. We just did that. Okay, under the hood it uses Babel and Webpack, but you don't need to know anything about them. That's good because I know very little. I know Babel is the translator between the different JavaScript versions. It lets you write higher version JavaScript that compiles down to lower version JavaScript for browsers. And Webpack is like a dependency management tool. When you're ready to deploy, running npm run build will create an optimized build of your app. So yeah, they gave us yarn build, right? So let's try that one out real quick. I'm gonna do this git init because I want to see. Oh, I guess they're already git log. Okay, so they actually initialized. They actually initialized and committed all of the code when in the create React app. So okay, that's fine. I'm gonna do git checkout that app to reset it all. And what I wanted to do was run yarn build. This is what they said will build. Yeah, creating an optimized production build where everything is quote-unquote compiled. Okay. So it created a build directory, which is where it must have all gone. And there should be an index page. Yeah, index.html. Okay, so let's open with Firefox. So what should happen is more like this. So in the build directory, oops, we should be able to do. It's just a plain old index.html. So actually, we should be able to do even Python 3-n http.server, and then open up localhost 3000 or 8000. Yeah, there we go. So that's cool. You can use any static web page server to do it, whether it's Python there or there. That is using a JavaScript one. And actually, I have a page on Dev Dungeon called one-line HTTP servers. Yeah, one-line HTTP servers. And so just to give you, here's the quick examples. Python 3 HTTP server, Python 2 simple HTTP server, PHP-S, Ruby-run HTTPD. So quick ways to get little servers up if you just need to serve. Okay, so that's good to know. If we need to deploy our app to production, we run yarn build, and then we just serve the static files serving index.html. It really couldn't get much simpler at this point, at least. So we understand the toolchain, we understand how to build the hello world, how to deploy. So let's start building stuff inside the app and learning how the framework actually works. Now that we've got a good setup. Actually, the last thing I want to do is open in WebStorm the project. So we're just going through the Tic-Tac-Toe tutorial right now. And so, okay, we just went through the setup environment, and they actually tell us to delete everything that's in the source directory. So in the source directory right now, I guess, is all the JavaScript and CSS to make that little starter page, the starter page that has the little spinning React logo, and what's in public? Favicon, index.html. Yeah, we can leave those for now. Oh, ESLint, please specify Node.js interpreter. Okay, I will. I would like the linter to be on. Okay, set it to my node 11.11.0. Okay. Now it should lint and give me some extra tips. Make sure I'm writing good, clean JavaScript. Okay, so it says, yeah, go delete everything in source. So I already did that. I just wiped it all out. I left whatever's in public, but we'll see if we need to remove that too. Okay, so now they say in the source folder, create index.js. Wait. Yeah, let's just leave public alone. Okay, so they said create index.css. Okay, and they said with this CSS code. Oh, okay, let's copy it over and look. So this is the CSS for this Tic-Tac-Toe game they want us to use. So there's just some simple body, simple padding. Nothing too fancy, it's just setting margins, borders. There's one class called square, class called square focus, a navigation with some background color, a game class. Okay, so there's nothing too exceptional happening in the CSS. Nothing really noteworthy, so that's fine, we'll just let that be. Okay, and then it says add a file named index.js in the source. Okay, so we'll add index.js right next to the index.css. Yes, also add that to Git. And it says with this JS code, so they're already giving us what to start with here. Okay, let's go through this. So there's a class up at the top called square. Extends React component, and it just returns a button, the class name of square. There's a class named board, which extends React component as well. It's got a render function that just returns the HTML, and it looks like this is the board. It's got all the squares. Class board, yeah. Class game, which looks like it has a board inside of it. Okay, so we've got a square, and then we've got a board, which utilizes the squares, and then we've got a game, which utilizes the board. Okay, and then at the very bottom we've got a main function basically. Render the game component, and the game component is going to render some HTML with a board component. The board component is going to render all of these divs for the thing, and then it's going to render the square, and the square is going to have to be an X or a 0 or a blank. Okay, so let's see, add these 3 lines to the top of index.js in the source folder. Okay, yeah, because all these imports are not working. So actually I'm going to do Alt-Enter. And we'll say insert import React from React. Okay, so that helped us get it there. And down here we'll do Alt-Enter to get the help. And so yeah, import React DOM from... Ooh, maybe we'll do... Which one? Actually, yeah, because I want to see what this comes up with, what WebStorm helps us with compared to what we did here. So, okay, it got that line how we wanted it. This line's slightly different, but that's okay. And import index.css. Okay. Okay, cool. So we only needed a couple imports, and then we're importing the CSS too. That's an interesting way to import the CSS. Okay, so you import the CSS in the JavaScript. Now if you run npm start in the project and open blah 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 in the browser, so they actually told us to use yarn run, or yarn start, I think. I guess yarn is the new hot tool that is supposed to be the evolution of npm. I usually still use npm, but I think yarn is supposed to be faster because it makes the downloads more concurrent, does dependencies better. But I think npm rolled in a lot of those changes too. Okay, so what we've got is our board, and it looks like if we click on one, then it shows the dotted line. So let's go back to the code. How is it doing that? That must be when you click it, it does something. So is it on the square component? No, no logic there. Okay, there's no logic there either. Oh, is it just in the CSS then? Okay, that's happening purely in the CSS. So if we do outline none, what if we did 1px red dotted? Okay, just to customize it a little bit, make sure we understand. So, actually, let's do this. I'm going to do add configuration, so I can run this from the play button here. And let's see, does it have a yarn one? No. How about I just want a shell script? Is there a yarn? There's no bash one either. 4 more items. Let's see, normally there's a bash option that just lets you do a regular old shell script. Okay, let me try, never mind. I am just going to continue using this for right now. Okay. Oh, and that's right, it updated automatically, but it didn't like, the border got a little weird. Okay. We'll go back to square focus outline none. Okay. So we've got the code. Let's continue on this little tutorial. Overview. Now that you're set up, let's get an overview of React. React is a declarative, efficient, and flexible JavaScript library for building user interfaces. It lets you compose complex UIs from small and isolated pieces of code called components. Yeah, everything revolves around these components. So I think once we understand the components, I think we really understand the framework. So it doesn't seem like that much to grasp. And a component is essentially just an object. It's just an object with some state, which is the data, the variables, and then yeah, so, okay, we'll keep going. And React has a few different kinds of components, but we'll start with React.component subclasses, which is all we've seen so far, which are just basic components. Okay, yeah. Class shopping list extends React component, and it just the only one you have to implement is the render. And then render just returns the HTML, sometimes with variables interspersed, the properties. And then, yeah, you use it as an HTML element. So instead of doing bracket P, or bracket A, or bracket image, you do a bracket shopping list. Angle bracket shopping list. We'll get to the funny XML-like tags soon. We'll use components to tell React what we want to see on the screen. When our data changes, React will efficiently update and re-render our components. Yeah, earlier it said it will recall the render method. Here, shopping list is a React component, class, or React component type. A component takes in parameters, called props, short for properties, and returns a hierarchy of views to display via the render method. Yeah, we saw that. So you have a top-level component, and it can have a bunch of subcomponents, and they can have subcomponents too. And that's how you compose the larger interfaces. Let's see. The render method returns... Hold on. I'm going to play... Okay. The render method returns a description of what you want to see on the screen. Yeah, we saw that. React takes the description and displays the result. In particular, render returns a React element, which is a lightweight description of what to render. Most React developers use a special syntax called JSX, which makes sure these structures easier to write. The div syntax is transformed at build time to create a React element. Yeah, so we saw that, and I think we definitely want to use the JSX because it makes it way cleaner than trying to do it like this. So that's going to be pretty much a requirement. If you're curious, create element is described more. No, I don't care. I want to use the JSX. Just give me that, please. Yes, please. Each React element is a JavaScript object that you can store in a variable and pass around. Okay. Yeah, they're just objects. Makes sense. The shopping list component above only renders built-in DOM components like div and li, but you can compose and render custom React components too. For example, we can now refer to the whole shopping list by writing bracket shopping list. Each React component is encapsulated and can operate independently. This allows you to build complex UIs from simple components. Okay, so this... Okay, yeah, we're going through here. Inspecting the starter code. If you're going to work on the tutorial in your browser, open this code, and that brings us back to the CodePen, codepen.io. And let's see. I'm going to copy this link and post it here in the chat, just in case anybody wants to check it out. That's where you can go play with it in the browser. Uh-oh. Okay. So here it is in the browser. I don't know if you have to hit run or what, but knock yourself out if you want to do that. I'm gonna do, yeah, locally by going to source index.js. Yeah, so let's go back to our index.js. And actually the nice thing is, once we run our server, since it just updates itself automatically, we don't have to mess with it. We just kind of set it and forget it, and we'll work on our code without a worry. Okay, the starter code is the base of what we're building. We've provided the CSS styling. Yeah, so it looks like what we're going to have to implement here is when a click happens, you need to mark the box and fill it. You need to update whose turn it is, and you need to check for win condition. So those are the 3 steps we're probably going to walk through here. Passing data through props to get our feet wet. Let's try passing some data from our board component to our squared component. Okay, now a board is composed of a bunch of squares. We strongly recommend typing code by hand as you're working through. Okay, I agree, and I'm gonna do that. I think I skipped too far down now. Okay, so I wanted to make this screen a little smaller so that I can follow along better. Okay. So now we've got the code on the right, the tutorial on the left. Yeah, so class board extends square. No, wait. We're in the board. Yeah, so this... Oh, we have to modify it a little bit. So we've got square. And now we're adding in the value equals I. Okay. Guess that's the index. Okay. Change square's render method to show that value by replacing the to-do. Okay, so when we call render square, we're passing in, so this is where render square is called, is in the render method. Okay, so it's calling render square and it's passing in the slot on the board. Slot 0 through 8 on the 9 slots, okay? So now we're taking in that parameter to the render method. And so when it returns a square, we're passing value. And so now we can get that in the render function. I guess that gets passed as a properties. So this is where we'd say, okay, what goes inside this button? Well, inside this button we want a variable, and it's the properties of what was passed to us. Okay, and this name here matches this value here. Okay, and okay, so now if we go check out our app, yeah, now you can see that they're filling up the contents of the button. Oh, that's why it's highlighting, it's because they're buttons. So now the button puts the text. Now if we inspect it, you can see that they are buttons. I wonder if I can make... There we go. I know the inspector's kind of small, but you can see that it's a button, and inside of it, it's got the text. Okay. So we just figured out how to pass a variable to a render function through properties. Got it. Yeah, so we see that. Congratulations, you just passed a prop from a parent to a child. Passing props is how information flows in React apps, from parents to children, making an interactive component. Let's fill the square component with an X when we click it. First, change the button tag that is returned. Yeah, so we need to update the render, so instead of just echoing out the value that's passed in directly. Oh no, it wants us to do something else. So it wants us to modify the button itself to have an on-click function. Okay. So when the button is clicked, it's going to run a function. And we should be able to just do... I think we should be able to do lambdas like this. Alert clicked. Oh, okay. So we're just going to verify that the click works. And I would like to verify that too. Excellent, it does. I use slightly different syntax. They use the function. I use the shorthand with the arrow. Equivalent. Hopefully it won't break anything. And then still props value. Yeah, we can leave that on. Okay. If you click on a square, you should now see an alert in your browser. You can. To save typing and avoid confusing. Oh, yeah, okay, so they change it right in the next step. Yeah, okay. As the next step, we want the square component to remember that it got clicked. So the square needs to have a state. The React components can have a state by setting this.state in their constructor. This.state should be considered as private to a React component. So components should not expose their state to other components. Let's store the current value of the square in this.state and change it when the square is clicked. Okay, so they're adding a constructor to this class. So we're gonna add a new function here. And I think constructor is a special name that you need to keep, so you must call it constructor. And oh yeah, okay, so we need super. We're gonna call the parent constructor with the same properties. And then we're gonna set the state. So we just set the state to some values. So we're gonna set the value to null. Okay. So we're just setting the initial state, and on the click, this is, instead of doing alert clicked, we should do this dot state dot value equals, and that's either going to be like an X or an O. So let's see. In JavaScript classes, you always need to call super in the constructor. We'll now update the render. Yeah, so on the click, we're going to set this set state. Oh, so I can't do .value.x. I need to do, well, I don't know if I need to, but I'm going to do it the way they did. So what I'm going to do is this dot state dot, how did they do it? No, so they did this dot set state, sorry. And set state is a function that takes, I guess it's the equivalent of a dictionary, and we're going to pass it the X. So that is kind of a long line. Let's do Control-Alt-L. Okay, so that reformatted our file. It broke it down into separate lines. Okay, that's fine. So this set state value X. So if we check it out, it should be setting the state internally, though it's not updating anything. And so let's see. So okay, so let's see what they say. So you set it with this set state and put the class name and on-click props on separate lines for better readability. Oh, yeah, I just did that. Okay. Now how do we... Oh, okay, hold on. By calling this.setState from an on-click, we update the state. We tell React to re-render the square whenever the button is clicked. After the update, yeah, this square value should be different. This state.value. Okay, so now let's try... There we go. So when you click and you do the on-click, it runs this function, which updates the state of the button. And because we're printing out something from the state, and we change the state, it re-renders and puts in the X. Very cool. Okay. When you call set state in a component, React automatically updates the child components inside of it too. Okay, it's good to know. So this is interesting. Developer tools. React DevTools extension for Chrome and Firefox lets you inspect the React. It lets you inspect the React component tree in your browser development tools. Now the reason that's really cool is because if you look now, all I see is button class equals square, and so all I can see in my browser right now is the final end HTML that gets rendered. It's not intelligent enough to understand the React DOM. So how do I use this? How do I use that? I want to totally turn that on. That's going to be awesome. The React DevTools lets you check the props and state of your components. After installing React DevTools, you can right-click on any element on the page and click Inspect, and the React tab will appear as the last tab to the right. Okay, let's add it to Firefox. Yes, you have my permission. Okay, let's try it out now. Let's go to our app. Let's right-click and let's say Inspect Element. And they said it would be the last tab. Maybe I need to make it bigger. No, maybe I need to restart the browser. Hold on. Okay, I'm gonna bookmark where I left off here. I'm gonna try restarting the browser. Okay. And let's go back here and do an inspect. Yeah, it worked. Okay. So interesting. If you look up in the top right, there's a React button that says React Developer Tools. Oh, it just lets me know it's on. Okay, so yeah, you right-click and you do inspect. And all the way on the right, there's a tab called React. And it says Connecting to React. Oh, very cool. You can actually see the actual object, so you're doing pretty much real JavaScript debugging here. That's going to be incredibly useful. Okay. Awesome. Okay, however, note there are a few extra steps to get it working with CodePen. Oh, we're not using CodePen. Okay, completing the game, yeah. So, there's only a couple updates. We now need an alternate to placing X and O's. We need a way to determine a winner. Lifting state up. Oh yeah, so if we update the state of a button, but the game object at the top level needs to know the state of all of the buttons in order to determine if someone is won or lost. So how do we put that state from the bottom object? Because they said data flows from parent to child. So how do we get it back up? I think that's what it means. Currently, each square's components maintains the game state. To check for a winner, we'll maintain the value of each of the 9 squares in one location. We may think that board should just ask each square for its square's state. Although this approach is possible in React, we discourage it because the code becomes difficult to understand, susceptible to bugs, and hard to refactor. Instead, the best approach is to store the game state in the parent board component instead of each square. The board component can tell each square what to display by passing a property, just like we did when we passed a number to each square. To collect data from multiple children or to have 2 children component communicate with each other, you need to declare the shared state in the parent component instead. Okay, let's just look at the code. So in the board, it creates a state in the constructor. So it doesn't have a constructor now, so we got to make one. Constructor takes the properties, and remember we always got to call this super, the parent, with the same properties. Okay, and we're going to set an initial state here. And inside the state, we're going to say... so the squares is going to be an array. So we're going to have the squares. Excuse me, I need a drink of water. Okay. Excuse me. So we created an array of length 9, so we can store one variable for each square, and we just filled it with nulls. So the board is going to store the state for each one. So let's see. How would we... So on the button click, down here where we have the... Or where is it? Here it is. In the square, where we have the render function where it does the on click, we're no longer going to set the state on the square. We want to pass it up. So how did they say you do this? When we fill the board in later, this state squares will look something like that. Okay. In the beginning, we pass the value prop down from the board, yeah. Okay. Oh. Okay. In a different previous step, we replaced the numbers with an X mark, determined by the square's own state that it maintained internally. This is why the square currently ignores the value prop passed to it by the board. Yeah, so in our code, we're still passing it a 1. Right? We're still passing it 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But it doesn't care. It's totally ignoring that. Okay, we will now use the prop mechanism again. We will modify the board to instruct each individual square about its current value. We have already defined the squares array in the board's constructor, and we will modify the board's render square method to read from it. I see. So, render square, instead of just passing the index, we want to pass, because right now we're in the board class, so we have access to the state that we just created, this dot state dot squares, and then the index. So we pass down to the child here, and then what we want to do is set the state to the value that we're passing down. Each square will now receive a value that will either be X, 0, or null. Next, we need to change what happens when a square is clicked. Right, so on click, let's see, so the value right now is being hard-coded as X, but what it should be is actually... Now wait a second. They are in the render square function, which is in the board. So they're still working right here. Render square with the index, returning the square with the value. Oh, and we're adding something else here, so it's on the click on the square. Okay, so let's break this down like they did. Now, on the next line we want to add an on-click, and then we want to add a function that does something, and they're calling it handle click, and passing it the index. But handle click doesn't exist yet, so we're going to have to make that. Now we're passing two properties from the board to the square. We're passing the value and the on-click. The on-click property is a function that square calls when it's clicked. We'll make the following changes to the square. Yeah, so now it's still got this hard-coded X in the state. So... Okay, so we're no longer going to output the state, but we want to do it from the properties. Okay, and the set state, what else does it say? Replace this dot set state with this.props.onClick. Okay, so this is what's happening inside their onClick. So inside their onClick, we basically just want to call whatever function the parent told us to call. Is that right? Now, wait a second. Something seems a little off. It says unresolved here. Delete the constructor from the square because the square no longer keeps track of its own state. Okay. Yeah, because it's simply being passed in the state. Now, hold on. Replace this.state.value with this.props.value. Okay, after the changes, the square component should look like this. So they've got the just a render function, and it returns the button with the class name of square and an onClick function that calls this props onClick. Now, I feel like I've got one too many braces here. No, I guess not. Okay, yeah, because I don't need... I see what's going on. It's fine. So let's try and run it. Let's go check on the host. Okay. Handle click is not a function. Yeah, because it doesn't exist, so I need the handle click function. And it's probably going to tell us to make it next. Yeah. We have not defined handle click yet, so our code crashes. If you click a square now, you should see a red error screen, something like this handle click is not a function. Yep, that's fine. So when we try and click a square, we should get an error because we haven't defined the handle click. Okay, so all that's going to do is get a copy. Okay, it's basically going to get a copy of the state, update it, and then set the state to the new updated copy. Okay, so that's going to be so if we do Alt-Enter on our thing, it's going to say create method, and we do. Okay, so we're going to get a copy of the squares, and that's going to be a copy of the state.squares, and you're getting it as a slice. So then we say squares of the index equals x, and it shouldn't always be an x. We're going to have to swap depending on whose turn it is. And what is it complaining about here? Assigned expression type string is not assignable to type t. We'll just see how that goes. This.setState with the updated squares. Okay, that looks good. So if we go back and we run it now it's doing the same thing, but instead of the square holding the state, the game's holding the state. Or not the game, technically, the board is holding it. So in the constructor, the board defines the state. We have the handle click, which I want to move up here, actually. Just my preference. Okay, so we construct it, then whenever something is clicked, we update the state, and this is going to have to be X or O, depending on current player. And then set it, and then switch active player to other player. Okay. Render square. That's fine. So, okay, we're looking good. In React terms, the square components are now controlled components. The board has full control over them. Okay. I guess that's some terminology they use. Note how in handle click we call .slice to create a copy of the squares array to modify instead of modifying the existing array. We will explain why we create a copy of square array in the next section. Why immutability is important. In the previous code, we suggested that you use the .slice operator to create a copy of the squares array to modify it instead of modifying the existing array. We'll now discuss immutability and why immutability is important to learn. There are generally two approaches to changing data. The first approach is to mutate the data by directly changing the data's value. The second approach is to replace the data with a new copy which has the desired changes. So hopefully you guys know what that is. If not, you can read more about that. We'll take their word on all that. Immutability is good. Function components. We'll now change the square to be a function component. Uh-oh, what's a function component? And it looks like we're almost done here. We are almost done. In React, function components are a simpler way to write components that only contain a render and don't have their own state. Okay, that makes sense. Shortcut for components that have no state and just a render. Instead of defining a class which extends React.component, we can write a function that takes props as an input and returns what should be rendered. Okay. Function components are less tedious to write than a class, and many components can be expressed this way. Okay, so let's do this. Let's comment out our old square, and let's build it. Instead of making it a class, it's just a square, and it takes in the properties. And it has one method, which is return. And inside of that, we're going to put the JSX code. And we want just like this, so onClick equals props dot onClick, which is getting passed into it. Close. And then we want to print out the properties, the value. Close the button. Okay, that, yeah, it says it's unresolved, but I think that's okay because it's dynamic. So let's go back here, and it all still seems to be working. Okay, so that's good. Even with our change here, that works just fine. Okay, so we'll just kind of keep both of those around so we can compare them. Note we've changed this props to props because that's how the variable is accessible to us at this point. Hey, SecDevOps AI Ronald says, wave. Hey man, how's it going? We're doing some React. Just learning how to build some front end. You ever used React? You ever mess with it? Or any other JavaScript frameworks? I'm just getting familiar with it, going through the tutorial. Okay, yeah, so taking turns, that's obvious. It's interesting. You could just... They're doing it in an interesting way. That's not really how I would have done it. This.state.isX is next. I would have done it... Well, let's just see. What I really care about here is how they're handling the click. Okay, yeah, so we're almost done. We might as well just go ahead and finish this. Okay, so taking turns in the board, it's in the constructor where we want to update the state of whose turn it is. So in our state, we'll go with what they have. X is next. We'll start with true, so X is going to be the first player. Okay, so in the handle click, which we already have, yeah, I've already made a couple comments here. So we need to do these things, and they're showing us how they want us to do it. So we're updating the copy of squares that we have. Our copy of squares, this particular index of our squares, is it's going to be an X or an O. We're going to update it to, and it's going to depend on this ternary operator. That's what it's called, ternary operator, right? So we're going to say, if X is next, do X. Otherwise, do O. Okay. And then in the set state, yeah, we need to update whose turn it is next. So then we'll do the same kind of thing. So X is next oh wait, that's going to be inside our state object. So let me break this out in a couple of lines. Okay, so we're going to pass the squares, but we also want to update the x's next. And we basically want it to be the opposite of the state that it is now. So we're going to take the state that it's in now, this.state.x is next, and we're going to not it, or invert it. So we're just going to flip it from true to false. So x is not next, meaning the other person's next. Okay, and then in the render, yeah, so we've got, where is it? Next player is x. So now we can say status equals next player plus the output of, it's either going to be x or it's going to be O. So we'll do, it's going to depend on this.state.x is next. And if it is, question mark, is it? Then yes, it is, then x. Otherwise, if not, we'll go with the O. Okay, let's go back and check it out. Okay, so now it's actually updating the next player, but it's always printing out an X. So what's going on here? So this is where we should be setting the player to the next one. Oh, it's because it's always set. What I did is I left this line in. Okay, so now it should go back and forth. Okay, cool. Now, obviously, you would want to check things like, is it already filled? If it's yeah, so handle click, and how about this? We'll say if, I guess you need parentheses, if squares index does not equal null, then alert box already taken. And then can we just return? Yeah, we'll just shortcut and return because we don't want it to update the state or do anything. Oh, sorry, you can't go there. Box is already taken. Box is already taken. How about these? How about there? Boom. Box is already taken. Okay. Cool. So let's go back to finish what they say. So after applying these changes, you should have this board component. Yeah, X is true. Yep, handle click is updated. Next player is updated. Declaring a winner. Now that we show which player's turn is next, we should also show when the game is won. There are no more turns to make. Or there are no more turns to make. Copy this helper function and paste it at the end of the file. Okay. Earlier they told us to type out things because it would be better. But now they are saying just copy this one, put it at the end of the file. And that's because this is kind of a tedious check. It's a tedious check. Check this row, check that one, check if there's all verticals, all horizontals, if there's any diagonals. So they're just giving us to that. It's not important for us to figure out how to do that. We're learning about React, so this is not very important to React, but we need to do this every time a click is handled, right? So let's see. Every time a click is handled, we will, let's see. We want to update it and then set the state. And then after we set the state, we want to calculate. Well, I guess as soon as we update it, we can calculate, right? Well, we might as well just do it after we set the state. So then we'll just do check winner, or calculate winner. Calculate winner, and we pass it our copy of the squares. Okay, now if it does, okay, so we're gonna have to say if calculate winners, then we're gonna have to end the game. End the game somehow. Okay, we can get rid of that to do because it's done. So we have to end the game. And what are they saying? Yeah, declaring a winner? Okay. We will call calculate winners in the board's render function to check if a player is won. Okay, so they don't want to do it in the handle click. They want to do it where? At the top of the render? Wait, board? Yeah, there it is, render. The rest has not changed. Got it, okay. So, they want us to put it at the top of the render? Okay, so what would happen is the state would update, which would trigger a re-render after the click, And then, so right after the click, it's going to run a re-render, and the first thing we want to do is check the state of the squares to see if there's a winner. And, okay, so there's going to be a status variable, and then we'll say if... Okay, so they're storing the winner, so we'll say const winner equals calculate winner, and then if there's a winner and it's not null, status is going to be a message that says winner plus the winner, whether it's X or O. Else the winner is going, or otherwise it's just gonna, we'll go back to the message we had before. Otherwise we keep playing with the same message that was going on before. So, okay, you could add a state that says, like, don't let them play anymore. But, okay. I guess was there no winner? Oh, tie game. Okay, let's try this again. O, X, O, winner, O! Okay, cool. Our win state is good. We can now change our board's handle click function to return early by ignoring a click if somebody has already won the game, or if a square is already filled. Okay, yeah, so we did check if the square is already filled, but we could do it another way. So we could say if squares, or if calculate winner squares, then we'll just say alert, no more turns available, game is over. Okay, and we want to return after that, so there's no more game state updates. Okay, so now we can try boom, winner X. No more turns available. Okay, very cool. Okay, so this really was a good example to learn about all the basics of this, adding time travel. As a final exercise, let's make it possible to go back in time. Okay, so yeah, all they're doing is they're keeping a history of each square's event. Yeah, I'm not going to bother doing that, but I understand what they're doing. They're basically just storing the state in an array to store each state historically and go back if they need to. Okay, so I'm going to skip that part, and where are we at? We're at 1 hour and 9 minutes. Okay, so let's see. On the agenda for today was installing React, doing the hello world, how to deploy to production. We saw that. Basically, any yarn build, and then run it. It's just HTML, index.html after that. We did the Tic-Tac-Toe tutorial. Okay, so the last two things, now that we've got a grasp on React, and we should have enough chops under our belt to be able to build our own stuff now. So we're going to try and do that. So first, I'm going to look around for third-party components and just see what's out there. Maybe there's some really cool ones we can leverage. I'm thinking maybe some charts or graphs or buttons or sliders. There's probably some cool stuff out there. And nav bars. I'm interested to see if there's any nav bars out there. And mobile nav bars, stuff like that. And then we're going to look at building custom components. So, and we already looked at building some custom components, but maybe we can build something a little more useful. So I'm going to take a 5-minute break. Well, let's see. I'm going to take a break in just a minute. Okay, so first, before I take a break, I want to store this code because I think this is going to be a very valuable reference for me. And so let's bring back all our panels in WebStorm. Okay, so you know, I've been pretty happy with the tool we used. Create React app is what we did. yeah, this project was bootstrapped with create React app. So all we did was npx create React app. It initialized our Git repository. It downloaded and configured all the dependencies and the Babel and the Webpack, and just made it really, really easy. It even did a nice README for us that even gives us the tips on how to start it and run it and everything. So that's what I was going to do. I was going to come in here and put in notes about how to run it and build it and everything, but it's already done. So I'm going to just check out the files. README looks good. Yarn. And actually, one thing I'm going to do is post a link to livestream. Link to the live stream of building this project, just for a reference in case I need it later. Okay, so we've got our index. Do I want to do any cleaning up here? I think it's okay for the most part. Oh. Interesting. Game info. We never touched that spot. But okay, yeah, this looks good. Let's maybe clean up some of the extra white space. And that's okay. And public? Did we use? Let's see, did we actually use this page still? Well, we'll leave it in there for now. But I do want to ignore the build. Okay, it even made a good ignore file. I want to add the .idea so I don't get the JetBrains stuff. Let's check it out. Git status. Okay. Yeah, git commit. We're gonna call this stable working tic-tac-toe tutorial for React. Okay, I'm gonna go create a repository, and then I'm gonna take a 5-minute break. Let's see. Get some water, give my back and my eyes a stretch. If you guys have been sitting around for a while, you should do the same thing. So we'll call this React Tic-Tac-Toe example. Well, it's obviously an example. So simple React app following the Tic-Tac-Toe tutorial. Tic-Tac-Toe tutorial. Tic-Tac-Toe tutorial. Got it. Okay. Now I'm going to grab this remote URL. Say git remote list. Okay, there's none. Git remote add origin. There. Git push -- set upstream origin master. Okay. Now, if anybody is curious to run the code or look at it or play with it, it's now up on GitHub. github.com/devdungeon React Tic-Tac-Toe. Okay. So I'm gonna leave these things up right now, and I'm gonna go take my 5-minute break. I will be back very soon. I'm just gonna put on a little music for you. Alright. Let's get back to it, shall we? So where were we? We just finished this React Tic-Tac-Toe game, and I wanted to check out React components. So actually, you know, a lot of times if you just type in awesome whatever, you'll find several awesome whatever Git repositories. And actually, Brillout, I met this guy online. He actually has this project called Reframe.js. I know he's been spending a lot of time on it. In the last month, he's been doing some work on it. And I don't know much about it except it's a framework built on top of React. And he's put a lot of time into it, but that might be worth checking out for some of you. I'm not going to look into that tonight, but he also made Timer Tab. There's a website called Timer Tab, and he made this. Let's see if you see that at the bottom. It's got his name. But it's basically just, it helps you record your time if you want to do some time tracking. But anyway, yeah, so awesome React components, I forgot. He's got this. It looks like this is actually really out of date, but yeah, this will give us a good idea of like what's out there. I just want to get an idea of what kind of third-party things are out there in case I need. So we've got UI components. Tables. Okay, tables would be good. I want to do one of those. Infinite scroll. Overlay. Notification. Tooltip. Menu. Sticky, tabs, loader, carousel, collapse, chart. Yeah, chart I might be interested in. Tree. UI navigation. Custom scroll bar. Audio video. Map. Maybe. Time, date, age. Photo, image, icons, paginator, markdown viewer, miscellaneous, form components, input types, autocomplete, select, color picker, toggle, slider, star rating, drag and drop, sortable list, rich text editors, markdown editors, image editing, UI layout, parallax, UI frameworks. Yeah, I like Bootstrap. Material design's okay too. I think Bootstrap has more widgets. Device input UI. Okay, no. I think utilities, performance, dev tools. Yeah, okay, so let's take a look. So there's a few data grids. Let's maybe just see if they have a website or some screenshots. No, no screenshots. Next. What is this? Menus? Menus and sidebars? Screenshots? Well, I guess you style it however you want, so... No. How about this one? React sidebar? Okay. React motion menu? Oh, there we go. This one has a screen. This one actually has an animation. Oh, look at that one. That one's fancy. Okay, charts. Yeah, D3 React. So D3.js is an amazing looking visualization library. And if you go here, look at... This is just a sample of some of the different types of graphs that they have and visualization tools. So, like, let's look at this one. This one is called Sequences Sunburst. And because it's all JavaScript, you can actually move your mouse over them and drill down and get all the details. So they have really, really powerful visualization tools. So if they have a D3 component, maybe that'd be useful. I don't think it'd be that hard to make your own component, though. For something like that, it's probably easier to roll your own component, unless it does something really fancy. You probably spend just as much time learning and working around somebody else's implementation and doing your own. but it's good to know that there's... Yeah, it looks like there's a lot out there, but... Oh, that one looks kind of nice, if you need a multi-slider. So let's see, if we wanted to add that, what would we do? Okay, so we would say import slider from RC Slider. Also import the CSS for it. And then we just call slider in range. Interesting. Okay, so maybe we should pick one and just try it. See if it works. Maybe there's an easy one. How about notification? A complete and totally customizable component for notification. Is that a little much? Oh, look at that one. Look at it. Notifications all over. We should make a website that has pop-ups all over it, just like that. And each one can have an ad. And then we can name it... what should we name it? Let's name it something like SourceForge. And make it download software, and each ad can actually have a download ad, so people will never know which download button is the real download button, and they'll always accidentally click on the ad. Sounds like a great idea. Okay, so let's see. Let's find at least one. At least one that looks good. Okay, how about this one? Last updated. Not too. Yeah, see, you know, you never know how old this stuff is, and if it even works with the latest version. Map. Oh yeah, you can do GL, OpenGL stuff. Why don't we just? Let's just try and build our own. Like, I know I have an idea of what I want to do. Okay, so we explored them, and we looked at a little bit how to install them and use them, because each one, the documentation explains how to add the dependency. So, yeah, let's try and let's make a table. Okay, so what I want to do is get out of this project. Let's close this project. And... why don't we... Okay, so we can do npx... Is it React history graph npx? Okay, it's npx create React app. npx create React app, and this is going to be called React custom tables. We'll go with that. We're just going to try and build a custom table that we can pass data to. Okay, so we use the create React app. It's going to fetch all the dependencies. It's going to initialize that Git repository. It's going to create the README, the Git ignore. It's going to generate a basic hello world for us. It's going to do all that good stuff for us, save us a lot of time. And I just need to find it to open it. There it is, React Custom Tables. Okay. So it's open, and now if we look in the source directory, we'll see app.js. Oh no, I do not want to add the idea folders. In fact, I'd like to go in my git ignore and add .idea. Those are the folders that hold the IntelliJ settings. Okay, I need to set the node interpreter. That's fine. Just some quick setup. Okay, yeah, let's get rid of the logo.svg and service workers. This optional code is used to register a service worker. Register is not called by default. A service worker. Hold on, I need to Google what a React service worker is. Let's try this top Stack Overflow one. You may not need a service worker for your application. If you are creating a project with Create React App, it is invoked by default. Service workers are well explained in this article. To summarize from it, a service worker is a script that your browser runs in the background, separate from a web page, opening the door to features that don't need a web page or user interaction. Today, they already include features like push notifications and background sync. Oh. And have ability to intercept and handle network requests? Okay. So that's really interesting. That's how they do the push notifications. And that's how you can register. Okay, so if we wanted to have some kind of job that ran in the background, even if the page wasn't open, we'd register a service worker here. So what does that really consist of? This lets the app load faster on subsequent visits in production and gives it offline capabilities. However, this also means that developers and users will only see deployed updates on subsequent visits to the page, after all the existing tabs open to the page have been closed, since previously cached resources are updated in the background. Okay, I'm just going to delete that. That's interesting to know, though. Maybe when I have a use case for that, I'll look into that, but we'll just delete that, and we'll delete the part about the service register. Okay, index.css. We can just go ahead and wipe out all of it. All of it. Totally clean. Okay, so we're importing the CSS. Okay, they separated out app.js from index.js, so this is kind of like the main, and this is really the main logic. So we don't need that SVG anymore, and we're importing app.css. Interesting. So there's index. Okay. I guess we can just delete the index.css since now there's nothing in it. It's fine, we'll just clean that up. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and delete that test file. Let's just pretend we already unit tested everything. Okay. Keyframes. Okay, so it's doing a little bit of animation. And yada yada yada. We can delete all of those. We don't really care about those either. Okay, we'll get rid of that. So this is our whole app. Now, I guess it renders everything inside of a body automatically. You don't need to make a body. Okay. So we've got our main app, we've got a header. We've got a header, we've got a link in there, clean it up. Okay, why not put a footer? So we got a header, footer, and, well, I guess it's not, well, yeah, it's not a head element, it's the header element, which is an HTML5 element. So then we could have a div in the middle and call this one main content, something like that. And in here we'll just do H1 welcome, P welcome to the app. And the header will just say app name. Okay, so now if we go here and we go check out, I gotta do a start. So we go yarn start, boom, just like that, yarn start, and we're ready to go. And give it a second to do all of its stuff the very first time. And I do have it, it's only 300% zoom. So, okay, we'll go with 150. There we go. So there's our app. Now if we do view selection source, okay, so yeah, it actually doesn't even It doesn't even make a body. I wonder if that's bad. Do you need a body? Should there be a body? Oh, I did view selection source. My bad. What I should have done is view page. I did view source. That's what only gave me a little subsection. Yes, it does. It does properly make the HTML. It puts in the head. It creates the body. Okay, yeah, and then it drops the root element right into the body. Okay, so that looks good. Confirms what I thought. And so now we've got our app with the header, and now why don't we throw in a custom element here? What do we want to make? Let's call it our cool table. Boom, we're gonna make a cool table. Now, to do that, we have to class cool table extends react.component. And we have to give it at least a render function, right? That's the one thing it needs, and we have to return. And then here we can basically say div, this is our cool table. Okay, so let's just try that and see if that works. So let's go back to our browser, go to the local, and there it is. It's rendering our cool, awesome table. So NullPixel says, as an idea for a future stream, maybe check out React Native. It's basically a way to create native Android iOS apps with React. And absolutely, I think that's what I was going to do tomorrow. Tomorrow what I wanted to do was make basically a GPS tracker where you can basically anywhere you want, you just pull open the app and you tap save location. So you can just kind of make bookmarks. You just make bookmarks of GPS locations. And I figured that'd be a good React Native one because it should run on the mobile phone, and GPS access is one of those unique sensors that you have on a phone that you don't really have on a computer. So I want to learn React tonight. Tomorrow I was going to check out React Native, and then yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I did some Electron stuff. So I'd also want to try out React and Electron, because then you've got desktop with React, mobile with React, and web applications with React. So sounds like a very powerful framework. And I'm digging it so far. This is actually pretty simple. You just create a class and you give it a render, and it's got a state and it's got properties. So actually, instead of that, let's we actually want to make a table, right? Oh, is it not gonna do? Now, does it reject the table? Or am I having a brain fart and is it not a table? Yeah, it's definitely a table with TRs and table rows and table Ds. I forget table row and table definition. TR. Hold on. Why is it acting so weird? Do I need quotes in there or something? How do they do it here? No, see, they're doing pretty okay there. Does everything need to be in a div? Is that why? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Let's try it without it. Let's see if that works. Return, failed to compile. Oh, parsing error. Adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. Did you want a JSX fragment? Maybe? Maybe? I guess it's saying I can just make basically an anonymous element. Okay, that looks like what it did. So down here... Oh... It didn't... Let's see, inspect element. So this is our cool table and the table. Okay, so that worked. That rendered like that just fine. Got it. Okay, so I guess that's how you make just kind of an arbitrary, because it needs to be wrapped in something. Okay, so for each row, we're gonna have a few cells, right? And we'll just put some arbitrary numbers in there for right now. Actually, what we want to do is, let's see, let's try and pass it a variable. Let's call it, I don't know. Well, let's just see, let's just say, what do I want to say? I think this would be good. We'll just say animal equals rabbit, because I just want it to be some arbitrary data. And so in the table, let's do the table header. And no, wait a second. Is it TR and then its table header is the cell? I think it's like that. So we'll make a couple rows. This is going to be animal, I don't know. Something else. Okay, we'll just have two columns. And so this is going to be this dot props dot, what do we say, animal? I'm just trying to make sure like I understand what's going on here. So we're trying to pass just a value to it. Well, let's try this. We'll just try it label. Label equals animals. And then instead of doing that, we're going to make a table up here that says this dot props dot, what did I call it? Label. Okay. So then we'll fill out our data in a minute. Okay, so let's see if that works. Now, yeah, we've got animals. Okay. So now we're passing in the label. Now we want to pass it an array. Interesting. So, well, I guess in our cool table we're going to have to store a state, right? So we're going to need a constructor that takes props, and we're going to have to call the parent one, and then we're going to have to set our state. Or do I need to call set state? Let me check something real quick. So in the one we just made, if we go into source and we look at that, we just said this dot state equals. Okay, we didn't use this dot set state. Not there, not in the constructor. And so here is where, actually I wish I didn't close that. Let me see, open recent. Yeah. Okay. Arrays. Okay, we're gonna call it data. Well, I'm gonna need a 2D array to do that, so rows is going to be an array. I wonder if we can make an arbitrary array, or if we're gonna have to do a list or something. So just to make this a little simpler, I'm actually going to say refactor this. I'm going to call it a cool list. And instead of having to deal with the two-dimensional array for our example here, we'll just say cool list with a label. Okay, and then instead of the table, we'll just do a list. And this is going to be, oh, you know what? We're actually going to have to make this a sub element, I think. Right? we'll call it a cool list item. Now how do we do... Hold on a second, let me go back here. If we wanted to add the variable number... So how do we do... Okay, how do you do a for loop in JSX? Or conditionals? Yeah, is there a way to do that? Think of it just like you're calling JavaScript functions. You can't use a for loop where the arguments to a function would go. See how the t-body is being passed a for loop as an argument? Yeah, that's a syntax error. But you can make an array and then pass that in as an argument. You can basically use the same structure when working with JSX. Okay, so you push a bunch of rows. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so let me try and translate that. Okay, so we've got our cool list. And we want to store each row. Okay, actually, let's try this. So this is going to be items equals just a blank. I guess it's a colon. So we're going to have items, and that's going to be a blank array. Okay, then... I'm a little confused here. So if we have our list of items, we want this to be cool list items, and then that class called cool list items is going to render specifically the list items. Okay, so we're going to have a render function, and that's going to return... Jeez, why does it keep doing that? Okay, that's going to return... Okay. So now we've got another subcomponent called cool list items. And so the cool list is going to be like the parent that has the label and the UL structure, and then there's going to be all of these items. Is that the best way to do it? Okay, let's see. Oh, so you can put it like right in here. And so this is going to be, let's see, we're gonna have a constructor to store some state. Yeah, I don't know why, what's up with this autocomplete being weird. Super props. And then this dot state equals, and this is gonna have the rows. Okay, so that one's gonna have the rows. Now, does this one still need it? Yeah, so the items is gonna have... Hold on, I don't think we need that one anymore. Okay. And so this is actually going to be a list item specifically. I guess we'll go with the key will be the row number. Or the list item number. Okay, so now we need another one called list item. Maybe I'm doing this the wrong way, but we'll try it out. So list item is going to extend React.component. And we need a render function, that's the only one that's required. And this one's going to return the list item. The list item containing the actual, I guess it will be this dot, yeah, properties dot value, whatever value we want it to put out. We'll say value, and index. Okay, so we'll try putting the index here, this dot props dot index. Expression statement is, what is it saying? Expression statement is not assignment or call. Is it talking about, let's see, what if I do this thing again? Expression statement is not assignment or call. Okay. I don't have to call print. Oh, I need to return it. That's what it's complaining about. Okay. Okay, so now I think okay. Oh, this messed up my code. Hold on. Yeah, there's a missing bracket or something. Hold on, let me see. Okay, those are good. Those, oh, this one doesn't line up. Wait a second. Yeah, something's messed up with this one. This one is missing. Why is that one not lining up? Oh, because of that? There we go. That's better. Okay, so cool list items should be used here. Cool list items. Cool typo. Cool list items. Okay, it's probably gonna be broken. No, it actually worked? Okay. Now, cool list label, and I guess we'll just give it some random data right now. So the cool list, hold on, React pass array as prop. Yeah, how do you do that? Okay, you just pass it. You just pass it with the braces instead of with the quotes. Okay, so in this case, I would say something like coolest items. Items equals this dot state dot items. Okay, so then the cool list items needs to take items as a property. So then we can say this dot state equals that for each item in the state. JavaScript for each. They've got an equivalent of a for each, right? Yeah, okay. Dot for each, and then you give it the function. Okay. So we'll do this dot props dot items dot for each. And then we want to pass it the item. And so we'll say this dot state dot rows dot append. Is that what I want to do? The item? Yeah, and then just for debugging, we'll go ahead and do console log this dot state dot rows, just to make sure it looks like it's actually printing out. No, maybe it's actually happening in this console. And actually that makes sense. It would happen here, so let's try the React. Okay, so we can actually inspect coolest items. All the items is empty. Coolest items is empty. Oh, I guess that makes sense. So let's do this. Items equals, and then we'll actually send it an array. We'll say lion, bear, cat. Okay, then we have to update this one to say, okay, so the state is that. Then we'll do the same thing. We'll do try a this dot props dot items dot for each item, and then for each item we want to say this dot state dot items dot append item. There's probably a cleaner way to do that in modern JavaScript. Items dot append is not a this dot state dot items. This dot state dot, well, no, let's see. Now why is it not happy with that? This dot state dot items dot append is not a function. I'm doing the same thing up here. State, this dot state equals rows blank, this dot state dot rows dot append. This dot state dot items this dot state dot row and this dot props items for each. Yeah, so we're definitely getting 2 errors. Okay. It's okay. Coolest. And the other one. Okay, so this is just the stack trace. Yeah. Okay, so that's okay. Now I'm a little confused why this is not this state items. It should exist like from right here. What if we just called it blah 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 blah? Is that the wrong way to make a list? No, we're doing the same thing here. But you use concat instead of append? Oh. Well, why is it working up here? Maybe that hasn't... Maybe I've never triggered that yet, and that's why it's not breaking. Okay, well, I lost my spot. Concat. Items. Okay, we'll try that. Yeah, that seemed to do a lot better. So if we inspect the element and we do react, connect react, we can do... Okay, cool list. There's the items. Oh, the items is an empty array, though. Okay, so... I think what we'll do is... We'll go with this dot set state. And do like this. We'll do items equals new items. Okay, we'll do that here. And then what we're going to do here is say... Let new items equal that, and then new items dot append. Now that should work, right? And then we can just replace the state, basically. No, I'm really... What's going on here? Is it not... Okay, do I need to do JavaScript create array? Do I need to do an array class? Or do I need to... Let's see. Yeah, it's the brackets. There. Oh, this dot state equals brace rows. This state rows append. The state equals items. This, oh, there it is. This state, wait, no, maybe it's because they are, so I do want to go through the properties. These are the properties. Items. Well, just to give it a different name and make sure, kind of a sanity check. Yeah, so for each of the elements we're going to store it as an item. And we want element. So we're trying to make sure we understand what's going on with all of these pages and subpages. New items.append is not a function. Hold on a second. I bet this is like a common JavaScript noob mistake. Append is jQuery method? What? But I'm using it. Array append is not a function. Dot push? Is that what I need? Dot push? I'm having a JavaScript moment. Okay, so I swear, is it, I mean, am I never getting here? Is that why that one never breaks? So we got our elements, and we're taking in our elements, and we'll say push. Okay, it allowed that. Okay, maybe now it will break. New items dot push is not a function. Line 49. Oh, let me go back to that. Okay. Okay, so now what if we go back to this dot state dot items? Can we go back to that? And then we can undo that. Okay, now it's complaining about the other one, which is good. Okay, yeah, we don't want append, we want push. Okay, boom. There we go. That was my problem. I needed a dot push for an array, not an append. Or a list. I'm actually not sure technically whether it's a list or an array in JavaScript here. Okay. Welcome to the app. Okay, so now we've got our list here. and it's all working. So let's kind of review and do a sanity check now that we have, now that we got it working. Let's kind of refactor and look around at this. So we'll start down at the very bottom where we have our top level app. We have our top level app that extends component. Oh, I've been doing React.component the whole time. Maybe I can update. Maybe I don't even need it now. Let's see, does that still work? Yeah. Okay, well I cleaned up my import slightly. I like being a little more explicit, so using React.component is fine for me here. So the top level, it returns an app, and that basically returns the page layout, and our one custom element here is this cool list. And so here, let's just let's try and create a couple others. Let's make a whole bunch of cool lists. And this will be what? Cool people and animals, cool people, and programming languages. So who's cool? Linus is cool, Guido's cool, and Mats is cool. Programming languages: C, Java, and JavaScript. Cool, so now we're reusing our component. Let's see if it still works. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so using the knowledge that was learned from the tutorial, I was able to compose a few components built on top of components. Okay, so this is very cool. I'm very happy with the progress so far. It's 2 hours, and let's see, this was pretty much my goal. So we've accomplished everything. What I want to do is make this one an example as well. So let me do this. Git add all of those, git status. We'll do git commit and say example react component. And git remote, we need to make a repository. So let's do this. New repository. We'll call this React example component. Simple cool list component made in React. Now, I guess one thing I'm wondering is if I wanted to export, I guess I would just package this up and make it an include statement if I wanted to put it in another project. Because at the end of the day, it just exports the app, which is just used here as a class. So modularizing that should be pretty easy. Okay, let me add this remote. Git remote add origin to there. Git push set upstream origin master. Okay, so now we've got our example component up here. And if you go into source, we've got the index that does nothing except load our component. So it already, this basically is an example of modularizing it. If we wanted to separate a component, then we would just define it in a JS file. And then at the end, we would just export whatever we wanted to export. Okay, so basically we would just copy app.js and clone it. Like we could have made a separate file. Actually, you know what? Let's try this. I think that'll be helpful. So what if I do cool list.css and cool list.js? And then we went in here and we basically took everything related to these cool list. Let me see, I want to refactor that one. That should be a cool list item. Okay. So all of these things related to that, we're going to go dump that in this one. We're going to have to do a couple of the imports. What else is missing? Okay, this one says it's never used, but that's okay because we're going to export cool list. But hold on, there's a special way to do that. Export default. JavaScript export default. What does the default mean? What does default? In part of ES6, if a module defines a default export, then you can import that default export by omitting the curly braces. Oh, okay. So if they don't explicitly say what they want to import, then that's what they get. The cool list. Now why is that? Oh, unused default export. That's fine because nobody's using it yet. But if we go into, well, let's add a little bit of CSS just to make this. So we'll do CSS class equals cool list label, just so we have one. Okay, class cool list label, color red. Okay, that's all we want there, but we actually need to, in our coolest.js, we need to say import dot, let's see, is it dot slash coolest.css? Is that how they did it? Hold on, let's go see. Import, yeah, they just put it in quotes. Okay, so we've imported the CSS, so we should be good there. We've got all of our stuff. Attribute class is not allowed here. Add class to custom HTML attributes. Hold on. Alt-Shift-Enter. Interesting. I'm not sure why it's saying... We'll see how that works. Let's see if it's still rendering. Is our example still up? No. Let's do another yarn start. And minimize it. Check it out. Will it load? Will it load? No. Okay, so first we need to finish. In our app.js, what we need to do is say import. And because we set the default, we can just say import coolest.js. No. Import coolest. Oh. Do we not need the JS part? Can we just say import coolest? No. Coolest from coolest.js? Yeah, so an index, no, they're just saying from app. Okay, so we'll just say from coolest. Unused import? Well, it should be right there being used. Hold on. So, import app from app.js. And in app.js, export default app, class app, okay. Import coolest from, oh, /coolest. Semicolon. Now, interesting. Maybe it's because, let's just try it out. coolest is not defined in source app.js. Now, hold on. Okay, so if I delete this line and I come down here and I do Alt-Enter and it says insert import, okay, it adds the import. Now, is that any different than what I had? Oh, the only difference was the double quotes? Oh, and I had a typo. That's what it was. That's all it was. Typo, typo, typo. Exicus2 asks, what time is it for you? Right now it is 11:13 p.m. That's what time it is for me. Okay, so now we've separated out our module. Exicus2 asks, what are you trying to code? Well, right now I'm not trying to code anything in particular. I'm trying to learn the React framework, and so I'm just building some contrived examples to make sure that I understand how it works and how to separate the components and how to build components. And so a minute ago we went through the Tic-Tac-Toe tutorial, and we did the Tic-Tac-Toe thing and learned how to install it and all that. And so now I've basically created this new thing called the cool list. And now if we go check it out, it should... Oh, there's one last error. Can't resolve cool list. Okay, that's another typo. That's such a weird name I made. That's why it's hard to tell. There we go. So now we've separated out an entire component to its own JS and its own CSS. And we look at how you can import it. So you could put this component, I guess, in its own module if you wanted to share it across apps, but it's also nice that it's just separated out like this. So we've got a whole component isolated with its little subcomponents. We know how to pass values and keep state. And I think that's really everything there is to this framework. I mean, I'm sure there's some more nuances and caveats and things, but I think for the most part, we've grasped all of the really important features. And now we can just go create components and reuse them. Okay, so I'm going to push these changes because I'm really happy that we separated out this stuff into separate files. So now we have like a main with the index, and then an app, which is like the whole page, and then little elements that we've created here. Cool. So again, there's our app. Get status, get diff, just to make sure it all looks good. Okay, get add, get status. And let's make it a little bigger. Okay, get commit, and this will say splitting out cool list component into its own files. And we'll go ahead and push it. Now let's go check out our React example component. And if we look in our source, we'll see our coolList.js. Awesome. So this really is all I wanted to cover for tonight. So let's see, we're at 2 hours and 17 minutes. Does anybody have any questions about React? Or maybe any of the features before I go? Maybe I can look up something or try out something. I think, let's see, so we got a question. Exicus2 says, how many languages of code do you know? I personally only know Python. So, I know a lot. Now, I guess we can look at, I have this cookbook. And so these are all languages that I've dabbled with. Android and Java, that's basically Java, and Kotlin. Kotlin too, so Java, Kotlin. Arduino is C++, Bash, C++, and C. Clojure, I'd say no. I've only done like Hello Worlds with it. Go, I know Go really well. Haskell is like a 1 out of 10. Java, I know really well. JavaScript, I know really well. Lisp is like a 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10, not very well. Nasm, NASM's not very well. I used to do a little Perl. I used to do a lot of PHP. I'd use Python all the time, and I use Ruby a lot. Rust I've only started dabbling with. Scala I never used, same with Tickle. So like, I'd say Ruby, Python, PHP, JavaScript, Java, Go, C, C++, Bash if you want to count that. I don't know, like 9, 10? Let's go with a dozen. How's that? Let's see. I tend to stick with Python. Unless I need something more powerful, I go with Go. I'll use Java if I need something that's really good and cross-platform. I'll use JavaScript also depending on the situation. JavaScript is starting to look a lot more attractive though, because you've got, like with the React, part of the reason I wanted to learn React is because you can do mobile, desktop, and web, all with React. How would I rate React? Like, my knowledge of it? Well, it's hard to say because I don't know yet what I don't know about React. Like, if I go to the docs, maybe I can get a bigger picture, but I feel confident enough to go start using it to build components. Because I just built a component. I just did it. So, I have a pretty solid understanding. I like it. As far as what I would rate it is as like enjoyment and flexibility and usage. I think it looks really nice. I think it looks really powerful. It may be a little more work at first to like separate out all the logic, but once it's all in place, I think it's going to be really helpful. Okay, so I've pushed it all up, right? Yep, we're all done there. So tomorrow, I think what I was going to look at is React Native. And maybe I'll give you a little sneak peek. So React Native, and so last night I did Electron. And Electron makes you build a, Electron lets you build a desktop application for Mac, Windows, or Linux. And it's all on JavaScript and HTML. So if you can do React and Electron on the desktop, React on the web, and React Native on mobile, you can reuse your React components all over the place. So that seems really powerful. And tomorrow I wanted to check out React Native and actually build an Android app using React with the new knowledge that I have on how to build React. So that's going to be the goal tomorrow, I think, unless I come up with something else. So with React Native, I'm going to try and build a GPS app that basically lets you bookmark GPS coordinates. And so on React Native, it should expose to you in the JavaScript APIs that let you access things like the gyroscope and the GPS and the SMS and stuff. So like if we look up React Native GPS, we should find some information about using, as a browser polyfill, this API is available through navigator.geolocation. Maybe that's a little different than, yeah, here it is. On Android, you want permission access find location. That's your GPS. That's your GPS location. So yeah, we basically want this geolocation.getCurrentPosition, and then we just store it. Store it in a SQLite database, put it on the web UI. So Mythic says, I'd recommend to use let instead of there. Let is faster on Chrome from what I can tell. So that's a good point. I think let in JavaScript is the newer way and the preferred way to do variable declaration. And yeah, if you use Electron, it is using Chromium. And same thing with the React Native. I want to say it's using Chromium or WebKit. So yeah, stuff that runs faster on Chrome is good. Exicus2 asks, my last question, what is your favorite programming language? So, depends. I say Python first. I think Python is my favorite, my first go-to. And then it's kind of a toss-up. You know, I like Java and Go, and I'm starting to like JavaScript more, even though I'm reluctant to say that I like it. But they all have their purpose and their place, but I think Python kind of wins at the top. I'd say Python's my favorite. Unless I can say QBasic. QBasic's my favorite since that was my very first language that took me so far. One day I should do a QBasic stream. I'm pretty sure you can still get QBasic on a DOS box, and you can get Free Basic, which is compatible with the old QBasic. And the reason I like Python, and the reason I even found Python, was because I was looking for something that was kind of similar to the old BASIC. NoPixel says you might want to take a look at Expo as well. It's just a way to make React Native development a bit faster. Expo. Let's see, the fastest way to build an app. Expo is a free and open source toolchain built around React Native. So, oh, ARKit? Very nice. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to look at was Cordova, or PhoneGap. So PhoneGap is built on top of Cordova, but Cordova is basically Electron for mobile apps. It basically gives you a web frame to work with, and you can write your whole interface in HTML and JavaScript. So I think I will probably end up comparing Cordova to React Native to see which one is nicer. If I really like React and I get kind of invested in it, I might start using that one all around and reusing some of the components and taking advantage of it. Otherwise, I might check out Cordova, and maybe, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe React Native's built on Cordova. I honestly don't know. Cordova versus React Native. Let me see. I think, yeah, I did try and check this out earlier. So they're a little bit different. But Expo too, huh? Expo is a free and complete workflow for creating next-generation apps for iOS and Android. Build cross-platform native apps. Let's read more about the SDK. Yeah, native features accelerometer, file system, GL graphics, image picker, push notifications, location, camera, leverage the power of React Native. Okay. Well, we'll see. I think I'm going to give, again, React Native a try tomorrow. And I'm really looking forward to it, actually. So, tomorrow we'll build a couple components and try and build a mobile app. Mythic says, video suggestion, hack the box. Yeah, you know, I've been meaning to do some more security-related stuff. My day job is actually related to security. Formally, my title is Application Security Architect. So, I do a lot of security stuff, but I tend to lean more towards the development stuff on my site, but I try and tie in security when I can. I did some port scanning stuff the other night, and I've got several packet capturing articles. So, Hack the Box, the pen testing labs. So, oh, they have some free ones. There are free boxes. Yeah, I didn't realize that there were VIP boxes here on Hack the Box. I did take my OSCP, actually. I learned so much taking that course. Okay, well, I don't want to get too sidetracked here. Yeah, tomorrow we're going to check out using some of the native sensors and making an Android app. So, thank you everybody for tuning in. If if you got any ideas, keep them coming. Mythic, I appreciate the ideas. Null Pixel, appreciate the input. Exicus too, welcome. I think this is your first time here. Welcome, and thanks for the questions and all the input and everybody else who came out too. So I will see you guys tomorrow night around the same time. Mythic asks which course? Oh, so the OSCP. The OSCP is like the course to take if you want to get a certificate in penetration testing. They basically put you in a lab. They give you a PDF book to work through that comes with videos that walk you through all of the steps and the methodology, and then you're let loose on the lab, and they give you like 50 boxes to try and hack into, and you just practice on your skills, and then there's a course at the end. So yeah, nice stream, good night. Awesome, thanks guys, I really appreciate it, and hopefully I'll see you guys all again. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll do my pitches before I go off. If you're not on the Discord server already, go to devdungeon.com, and on the right sidebar there's a join me on Discord. Check out my book as well, there's a link right underneath that. Go to youtube.com/devdungeon where you're watching now. Give it a subscribe so you get to watch the streams. And Dev Dungeon up on GitHub. Did you accomplish it? No, I actually didn't. So I did all. Mythic's asking if I finished the course, I assume. So I did not finish and get the certificate. The exam they give you at the end is a 24-hour exam, and you have to pass a certain point threshold. But no, I did all of the exercises. I did all of the lab work, but never finished and passed the exam. But I'm not a penetration tester, so if I did that more full time, I'd give it a little more effort. But I learned so much. I felt like I got way more than my money's worth out of it. It was a really cheap course. So anyway, thanks guys. Have a good one.